Live from the nation's capital, it's a rainy and muggy Saturday, the 28th of March, year of our Lord 2020. We actually had a thunderstorm at 6 a.m. this morning. The change of the seasons. Episode 81, War Room Pandemic. Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon. Want to get right to it. We've got a very honored guest on here today, the host and founder of Common Sense with Rudy Giuliani. It's going to break this afternoon at 3 p.m., another special edition. He'll have Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. As you know, Dr. Zelenko is the hero of the, the cordon sanitaire up in New Rochelle, where he has treated these the Hasidic Jewish community up there that came under the virus early on with Governor Cuomo, shut it down, and Dr. Zelenko treated him with this anti-malaria drug and has had, I think, quite frankly, miraculous results. That is the podcast today, Common Sense with Rudy Giuliani at 3 o'clock. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Mayor, can you hear us, sir?
Hello?
Hey, Mayor, how you doing, sir?
Hello?
Mayor, can you hear us? Okay, let's try that. This is not a pocket dial. We actually got America's mayor. Let's go to Mayor. Can you hear us?
Hello? No. I'm going to call you right back.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to when we get him back on. Let's put this back up.
Yeah, and you want to hang tight for this because right when the mayor comes back, he's going to talk about his interview that's posting at rudygiulianics.com at 3 o'clock today. He has a great interview with Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, a doctor from Monroe, New York. And when you hear some of these numbers, 669 patients seen in his practice, 0 deaths, 0 intubations, only 4 hospitalizations for pneumonia. These are some pretty amazing stats, all using hydroxychloroquine. This is remarkable, and so cuts a little bit against the quote-unquote anecdotal evidence, Steve, wouldn't you say, from Dr. Fauci? 669 to 0. That's probably a little better than anecdotal.
Well, I'll turn to our expert here. I think this is anecdotal when you see people in the field trying this, and you got to see, with this gathering storm in New York, which we're going to get to. We got gathering storm in New York. We have it's starting the acceleration in New Orleans. It's starting the acceleration in Detroit. We now know the Pentagon is looking at coming right up the track on FM 99.1 and 103.9 in Chicago, right? They're looking at other areas. They're looking at Florida. There's a ton of other these are coming on track now. I mean, this is a national epidemic. It's one of the reasons that we have recommended from day one that you got to look at this on a national basis, right? And one thing we don't want to do, which I think is very destructive for the country, is now we're in situations, and I'm not criticizing the governors. You're in situations where Governor DeSantis in Florida has essentially put a check at the Florida border of Louisiana to basically tell people under criminal penalty, you've got to if you come from Louisiana, you've got to have a 14-day, quarantine. The governor of Rhode Island, at least the way it reads, and I hope it's not as bad, but they're going to be hunting people down. It's not even that they're going to have a border thing. So, Jack, let's go back to this for a second because I think the audience needs to hear this. Yes, it's under FDA trials, and I think that, I've heard that, look, if you have a heart problem or something like that, it may not be the perfect thing for you, but at least it can augment on a therapeutic basis some sort of treatment. And quite frankly, with the storm we've got that's about to hit us, you have to have every tool in the toolbox available reasonably to use.
Well, I mean, for example, we heard about that French study from a week and a half ago where he treated 26 people. They all recovered. The same doctors just did a new study with 89 people that they published yesterday. One died, but it was a man well into his 80s. One woman is still hospitalized, but all the others recovered.
And so what is so is this where did that study
This
come
is
from?
the French doctor in Marseille.
But is it bigger than the 26-person
Yeah,
study?
he just did
how
a
much?
triple size, 89 individuals.
Over how long? Do you know how long it was?
Over the treatment cycle, I'm guessing it's probably 10 days or so.
Okay, we've got America's mayor, and it's not a pocket dial. We actually got America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, on the phone. Mayor, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can. I couldn't hear you before, but now I can.
Okay, fine. Listen, we're so honored to have you on the show. First off, give us your assessment of where do you think New York City stands with this gathering storm that's about to come ashore. Where do you think give us your assessment since you went through 9/11? Give us your assessment where you think the city stands today.
Well, first of all, I think the city so far has been able to handle, the dimension of what's happened. I think it still has more capacity to handle it. It's really going to on how you have various projections of what's going to happen. If it's the worst projection, it's going to get beyond what the city has available. If it's the same kind of growth we've had for the last week, it doesn't get much greater, then I think we have the resources here to handle it. After all, the city of New York alone owns 12 hospitals. We've got that doesn't count all the big giant hospitals that everyone knows about, like New York Hospital and Mount Sinai Hospital and Columbia Presbyterian and Cornell. This is a medical center that educates about 16% of the doctors in America. So we can withstand a lot. I think the governor has gotten us way ahead of the curve as far as he may get the president annoyed sometimes because he asks for more, and maybe he strictly needs. But when I was the mayor, I always did that too. That's the job of a mayor or a governor. You ask for twice as much, and you're willing to take 2/3. But I think that relationship is working. The coordination is working well. I'm worried about the large number of days that people have been confined, basically. You pay a price for that with people who are fragile. And I'm just hoping we get a day in which it starts to decline.
Let me
I am very hopeful about the future. I mean, I'm very hopeful, and I wish they would move faster. I understand that the FDA has to go through phase 1 or stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. But when 1,000 people are dying in America, and there's the prospect of 10,000 people dying, maybe we gotta go on a different program.
Before we get to that, I want to hang on for a second because I want to get to that in a second. Maybe, hopefully, we can get you to stay over. But I want to go back to projections. I want to go back to how you assess this. There's a spread between what Governor Cuomo's saying about a apex and a ramp that's coming up that we're going to hit probably in Holy Week and right now around the 21st of April. Mayor de Blasio, somehow we're getting a different set of analysis and assessments and numbers from him. He's saying it's to late April all the way to mid-May. How would you, when you were mayor, walk us through the mechanics, put us in the room of how you deal with the governor and work through so that you're dealing off a common set of bought-in projections so we know, hey, this is where the surge is going to come. This is how we have to be ready. Because it seems to me right now, and it's just a critique, is that you got the execution group on the ground in the mayor, and you got the management group of the governor, and they're dealing off two sets of numbers.
This is a disaster. The fact that the governor and the mayor are not together in the same room, talking strategy every single day. I'll tell you what George Pataki and I did within 3 hours of 9/11. As soon as I was extricated from the building that we were trapped in, he was the first call that I made. He said, "I'm glad you're alive. We better get together." We got together and we stopped seeing each other probably in December. In other words, we held all our staff meetings together. It would be as if you moved in the governor of Maryland's staff into the White House. We got an emergency center every day, three times a day. We had a staff meeting. His staff, my staff. If we had this problem, two different projections, we would agree on how to message it, so we didn't confuse the hell out of the public. Probably we'd do it if there really is support you're saying. We probably do it as high-low estimates, and tell people the truth. Hey, we got 5 estimates that are credible. Here's what they are. I always follow the rule. Tell people the absolute truth, and then once they get shocked with it, then find a way to put it in a place where they can understand it, they can deal with it, and always end every press conference on a high note. And because there's nothing we can't deal with, you just have to know what it is. And I think this is one of the things I've been criticizing from day one. The mayor, when you see in a situation like the city of New York and what it's in, when you see the mayor and the governor having separate press conferences, you have to know you have a fundamental problem.
Are they even talking right now?
Working together.
Mr. Mayor, do you think they're even talking right now? And I know that might seem a little bit absurd to have to ask that question, but we see Governor Cuomo at the Javits Center, which last time I checked was in Manhattan, in the city of New York. He's there doing the press conferences. He's going about, and all we're seeing from Mayor de Blasio is he's doing these little video chats like the readers' mailbags. I mean, they're in the same city. They're probably, blocks apart from each other. What's that communication even like from what you've heard?
I'm not, I don't know. I don't know. I have to assume they're not talking to each other. If they are, it wouldn't be good enough. Just talking to each other isn't going to deal. You got to be together 24 hours a day. You have the same constituency you have to deal with. You have different assets. The state of New York has most of the power to get what the city of New York needs. They have to sign off on it. The city of New York has most of the resources, much higher and better resources to serve the city than the state of New York. There's nothing better than the New York City Health Department. Nothing.
Let me talk.
Equal to the CDC.
Look,
if that's not,
you've been on, and Bernie Kerrick's been on.
That has to be seamlessly.
But let me ask you: in the command structure in New York City, the governor doesn't have a command center. The governor doesn't have an emergency services. All of the deputy mayor for operation, you explained it, the EMS, the best in the world, even the relationship to the hospitals, that's all comes up through the mayor. The mayor's got the command center with the police department, right? Physically, what does even the governor have in New York City itself to actually do command and control? He doesn't. He goes to the Javits Center, gives a press conference, but the physical apparatus of command and control comes up through the mayor, correct?
Yeah, he's working with about 1/3 of the resources. The major operations that serve the city of New York are run by the mayor of the city of New York. And the reason that George Pataki, who got criticized for this, he gave me too much attention. The reason he let me run most of it is I ran most of the agencies that were going to have to do the work. I ran the fire department. I ran the police department. I ran EMS. I ran 911. I ran the hospitals. New York City, as I said, owns and operates 17 hospitals. The mayor should know how to run a hospital system. My fear is that Mayor de Blasio has slept. I hate to criticize him now. Damn it, then he should just get out of the way. The guy hasn't done his job in 7.5 years, 7 years. And now we're seeing he doesn't really know what in God's name he's doing. And I know that the governor, I shouldn't say this, but I would imagine the governor is an intelligent man, understands what I'm saying. But somehow he's got to bring him in. He's got to put his arms around him and say, okay, Bill, let me use your resources. I mean, Cuomo has done an excellent job with the resources he has. And de Blasio has sort of been the odd man out, saying things that very often don't make sense. Like, after this is over, we're going to have a massive recession.
Mayor,
why in God's name are you telling people that now?
Mayor, can we?
I mean, maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Mayor, can we ask you, could you possibly stay over and do one more segment with us? We got much more we want to go through with, including about your special this afternoon.
I can tell you some good news.
Fine. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. This is War Room Pandemic, Episode 81. Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam from Fort Defiance, live on Capitol Hill. We'll return in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You're in the War Room, and we are on a quiet capital city that is virtually appears to have shut down, except for folks over at the White House and certain agencies that are still being manned. Saturday, the 28th of March, the year of our Lord 2020, we have America's Mayor that's on the phone line with us, Rudy Giuliani, giving us guidance about what is to come in New York City.
Mr. Mayor, I want to get right into this special podcast interview you have coming up at 3 o'clock today. That's Rudy Giuliani CS, Common Sense with Rudy Giuliani, an interview with Monroe, New York Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, who has some pretty stunning data. I'd say this is much better than the anecdotal reference that Dr. Fauci gave. It was 669 patients with 0 deaths, treating them with hydroxychloroquine. Can you tell us about this interview, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. I mean, I met him a few days ago, talked to him. He's been on, I think he was on Laura Ingram's show a couple of nights ago, and he was in the middle of beginning this. He's basically taking care of a community largely that's a Hasidic Jewish community in a place called Curious Joel, New York. About half the patients are from that community. About half the patients are from surrounding areas. And now he's probably treated more by now. This was as of yesterday. He had 699 cases. He's got one or two that are critical. So, let's keep our fingers crossed and say a prayer for them. But he has a whole group that are either close to recovered or recovered. And basically, he does exactly what the president was talking about, and now a number of doctors. There were two on last night, Dr. Stephen Smith and Dr. Amish Adalia, who said they were using I think you call it the off-label prescription of hydrochloroquine, 200 milligrams, basically Z-Pak with zithromycin, 500 milligrams, and then zinc sulfate. And he gives that to them for 5 days. It's a 5-day regimen. And within 3 days, he started to see immediate results. And now he's up to almost 700. He's up to almost 700 patients. And he is not. I mean, I am told by doctors that I check with that this, some version of this. Sometimes the zinc isn't used. It's just the hydroxy and the Zithromax. This is being used now in New York City by a number of doctors. I'm going to try today to get the number. And it's being used in Seattle, Washington. And these two doctors, Dr. Smith and Adalia, went on television last night to say they're using it and getting good results. So I just wish that the FDA would move at lightning speed. We can't do for the safety of the patient, we must go through stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. By that time, half the country will be dead. I mean, you've got to move this. We got to start it maybe different. Let's do an analysis of what harm will this do. In other words, I'm perfectly healthy. If I took it, what would happen to me? If it isn't very much, and we got even anecdotal results like this, and we have people dying, maybe we should use it. And let's start to shorten these tests.
Why do you think that Dr. Fauci seems to be? You don't see, Trump time. Trump times I wanted done yesterday. You saw that yesterday with Peter Navarro up on the stage on the Defense Production Act. When GM mayor, dragged their feet at all, President Trump dropped the hammer, signed the executive order, put Navarro in charge. And next thing you know, GM's standing up the plant in Kokomo, retooling, equipping, state-of-the-art ventilators like in the end of May. That's Trump time. And you know this. Why is Fauci? It seems like every day they're trying to suppress even doing this. These are the type of situations, as you just said, you've got to try a lot of different things to try to thwart this. Why do you think they're just playing by these standard administrative state rules? Because all their lives they have, and they think there is a balance here. You could go too fast. But in a situation where you see people dying, and you've got projections that are astronomical, you've got to take some risk. You've got to take more risk than you would if we had no outbreak like this, and we were looking at this very promising treatment. Then we have all the time in the world, or mostly all the time in the world, to make sure people don't get headaches from it. But these people are smart enough to know how to go into extreme time testing. We can't be as sure as we normally would be because we don't have the time for that. It's like saying I know that 1,000 people are going to die in your city tomorrow, and I got this great test, and it'll be ready in 2 weeks. Well, thank you, thank you very much, but
Mr. Mayor,
maybe we can get it ready overnight.
Mr. Mayor, take us back to your 2002 memoir, Leadership, the book that my friend Ken Curson helped you with, and which in my house, it's right up there next to the King James Version, so it got a prominent placement in the Miller household. Going back to your book, What would you say that President Trump is exhibiting the best when it comes to leadership traits? What thing that you have talked about on the leadership, and realizing no two crises are ever the same, well, what have you been most impressed by with President Trump?
First of all, his transparency, his openness, the fact that he's there every day, sometimes twice a day, the fact that he has his staff with him. You see another difference between even Cuomo and de Blasio, or Cuomo, Trump on one hand and de Blasio on the other. When you see de Blasio, you see him all by himself. What's that all about? He's not doing the work. Neither is President Trump or Cuomo. Those people in the back are doing the work. And so he gives you a sense that he's got a staff, he's got a team. I'm looking at a picture of him now. It's probably an old one from yesterday on Fox. He's got 8 people behind him. First of all, that's a good optic. But number 2, that's a real substantive display of the fact that he's got a gigantic staff working on this. And the same thing with Cuomo. That's number 1, his transparency. The fact that he's honest. Even if he makes mistakes, people want to know they can trust you, and people know in an emergency like this, you're going to make mistakes. In fact, if you don't make mistakes, you're probably not pushing the envelope enough to try to help people. So they're willing to. I think everyone. I can't tell you how many doctors appreciated his pointing out this hydroxyzithromax regimen, because it said it freed them. They knew this. They knew this for a week, and they can prescribe off label.
If you were very risky.
It goes after them for that.
If you were advising the president today, you see the governor of Rhode Island is basically hunting New Yorkers to come in there and want them to quarantine for 14 days. Ron DeSantis, one of the best governors in the country in Florida, has put up a border check between basically New Orleans and Louisiana and Florida to make sure Louisiana quarantined for 14 days. Would you tell the president to continue to pursue this idea of unlocking the certain parts of the country, or would you tell him to go to a harder lockdown?
I would say I wouldn't get any harder right now than we are. I would, like him, be looking for the earliest possible moment that I could start releasing people, because I realize that even though this is probably and hopefully helping with the spread of the disease, it's also causing enormous damage, obviously enormous economic damage. And the longer it goes, the more irreversible some of it will be. Second, it's causing tremendous psychological damage to a lot of frail people. Not everybody can stay indoors for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and not have very bad things happen to them. The elderly people who are trying to save because it hits them hardest are probably hit the most by being incarcerated, frankly. So this is not a good thing to keep going, 1 day longer than you have to. So the president telling people, sort of displaying the attitude, I'm willing to open this up as soon as I can, gives people hope. It gives them hope. And I wish that stupid media would stop criticizing it, because they're not running a city or a country, and God forbid they ever did.
Would you, if you were mayor of New York, would you quarantine New York right now? Would you shut down New York to all entrance and egress immediately?
No, I would not.
Why?
No, I would leave it exactly the way it is. I go out every day. I've been now in almost every borough. I missed one. Yesterday I went out and took pictures again. People are basically, you couldn't have them staying inside more than they are. They have to go out and get some food and do it carefully. They've got to go out and get medicines or have them delivered. Otherwise, some of them are going to die. Look, at this point, the casualties that we have are very, very high, but they're not out of line with other things we've dealt with in the past. And we've got to hope that the level of isolation that we did has worked. If de Blasio is right, and this lasts until May or whatever he said, then this whole thing hasn't worked. This whole thing hasn't worked. It means that the disease is going to spread irrespective of the fact that, most of America is indoors right now. I saw that Dr. Fauci even reduced his estimate of fatalities quite dramatically 2 days ago. About a week ago, he said this would be something like 10 times the fatalities of the ordinary flu. And the other day, he said, it's getting closer to flu-like fatalities. I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but...
Mayor, we've got to jump. We want to thank you very much for taking time, particularly taking 2 segments to do this. Your special is coming on today, your podcast, Common Sense with Rudy Giuliani at 3 p.m.
I hope doctors use their, independent judgment here and do the things they think are right for patients. I mean, they are doctors for a reason.
Mayor,
they probably know their patients a lot better than Washington bureaucrats.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Appreciate it. Look forward to 3 o'clock to listening. Okay, this is War Room Pandemic. That was America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Be back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
There are decades in which nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which decades happen. We're in one of those weeks. We're live from Capitol Hill at Fort Defiance, right across the street from the Supreme Court of the United States, in a very quiet Capitol Hill and a very quiet Washington, D.C., although people at the agencies, people at the Pentagon, at the White House are working 24/7, burning the midnight oil, trying to get the nation through this pandemic. It's episode 81, John Frederick's Radio Network, America's Voice, which is now Dish Channel 219, Newsmax TV. Want to go to back. I want to go to you first, Jack, with the mayor. The point of what the mayor's special is today, the point of what people are talking about. Walk us through once more. Where do we stand with this drug? How's it going to get implemented and put out to the world?
Well, the FDA has approved, off-label prescriptions, but I think what's really exciting that America should hear about, they did another French study with 80 patients, the same guys down in Marseille. They gave them 200 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine 3 times a day. They gave them the Z-Pack, start out with a big 500 milligrams, and then 3 days of the rest. And what was amazing is 57% of these patients had comorbidities, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and things like breathing difficulties prior to even getting the COVID-19. Now, of 80 patients, 1 died. He was 84 years old and in bad shape generally. There's another woman who's still in the hospital at age 74, and all the rest of them made complete recoveries. And what's very interesting about this chloroquine as a treatment is the Chinese studies and the studies sort of confirmed in the West have been that people who get the disease can be shedding the virus for as long as 21 days, maybe even more on some occasions. And what this chloroquine seems to do for people who might have recovered anyway is it so reduces that viral load that people stop shedding the virus sometimes 6 days after going on this. And I don't think any of them went past 10 days.
For people watching on TV, on America's Voice and Newsmax, and particularly as you watch these later, not the podcast, if you see us looking down at our devices, the reason is that the War Room, Greg Manns and the team are continually updating us with live breaking news, literally constantly. I got to bring this one up. CDC guidance is about to change. They say in the next 10 days, Americans will be advised to wear a mask in everyday life. Current recommendation is only for high-risk groups only. My point, Jason Miller and team, is that you see, and Raheem, we're going to get you to walk us around the nation and the world. And Jack, you'll come back and talk to us about these drugs and how they're going to coordinate usage in these high-risk areas. But we see now trend lines coming to a peak in New York. You see New Orleans exploding. That's why Ron DeSantis, who's been about as conservative a governor, remember, he has not shut down or locked in place Florida yet, right? He's done certain things. They've declared it a federal, disaster area to get the coordination with FEMA, but he hasn't. Now he's locked down the state's border. Detroit, in parts of Michigan, on fire right now. And now it looks like, unless this is going to be corrected, CDC, and I assume it's coordinated with the task force, Mr. Jason Miller, that's a pretty big – I'm used to being – because I spent so much time in China. And you guys know this because of your expertise in the SARS situation. You see this in Asia often, particularly when the yellow flag goes up, when everybody's wearing a mask. I've never seen this in the United States. So I'm just saying this is on Twitter by Matt McCarthy.
Who's a doctor at Cornell. So this isn't
It's not official, but somehow he's hearing it from Inside Baseball, right? CDC
right. I mean,
guy.
but this is a substantial player.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is not a flake.
No, this isn't a guy playing 3-card monte down at the corner.
Or one of these guys who's trying to get clicks. This guy didn't care about clicks.
He's not selling beet juice or injecting silver.
CDC guidance on masks expected to change in next 10 days. What did I tell you about Holy Week? That would be the start of Holy Week. Just saying. Americans will be advised to wear masks in everyday life. That we are going to, in the next couple of weeks here, we are going to psychologically cross a barrier, right?
Well, what's interesting about the masks, I think everybody who's been studying this disease knows that the masks are effective. And we can even look back at the masks in 1918 where they were really just starting to use them. And they were especially effective in keeping the infected inside these hospitals from necessarily infecting someone else because it keeps them from coughing,
Those nurses, the civilian women out in St. Louis they took every piece of cloth they could get and made handmade masks.
Right.
Made such a big difference.
And that's the American spirit I like. But we got to also understand that these masks are in critical short supply. So I think early on in this, they sort of downplayed the need for the masks so that they could catch up. And, that's understandable.
I mean, either go to you or let's start with Raheem. Raheem, walk us through the nation because here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you to think, as Wellington said, over the next hill. Over the next hill is Holy Week's coming. You've got this slope in New York City. We've now got New Orleans. We've got Detroit, other areas. They're all starting to converge. We're going to have Cortes later on talk about the economic crisis and how you're going to get cash, and maybe or maybe not we converge with actually getting cash in people's pocket. But Raheem, walk us through the country.
Well, I'm gonna talk about New Orleans first. I'm still working on some Detroit information because still we're at a point where the level of information that's coming at a statewide level is more readily available than it's coming from a citywide level. The Detroit numbers are slightly more confusing. I'm going through that right now, but the New Orleans is getting clearer, and it's getting clearer because it's getting worse. And they're now and Governor Edwards now beginning to take this much more seriously. New Orleans has 1,170 cases, about 50 dead. It's the second top rate per capita now in the country, but only the fifth in the nation for testing. And that, they say, over the next coming week, they're going to have to change. The most recent high-profile death in New Orleans was a 17-year-old, 17, tested and died Thursday. There are complications in that case. They talk about him dying of an aneurysm in the end, but tested positive for COVID-19. The governor issuing a stay-at-home order since Monday there, and President Trump approving 2 federal field hospitals, 1,120 beds at the New Orleans Convention Center as an overflow site. There have been 12 deaths per 100,000. This is the number we're currently looking at, and it's obviously changing by the second. It was 11.8 yesterday. It's going up. When you put that into the perspective of New York City, for instance, which is about, I think, 3.2, they obviously have a much severe problem there. And Dr. Rebecca G., who's from the Louisiana Department of Health, said something. Obviously, they've just had their Mardi Gras season. She said people weren't just catching beads, they were catching COVID-19. And it looks like we're now just catching up with the numbers.
Jason, how extraordinary is it to have Ron DeSantis, one of the top governors in the country, actually shut the border between Florida and Louisiana?
I mean, it is just it's huge. I mean, and actually, technically, right there, it's Alabama. You got the little bit of the stretch there. Between,
yes. L.A., lower Alabama.
Right. But people got to realize that in that stretch there, of course, there's the
my ship was actually, I can't believe, no, my ship was made in Pascagoula, Mississippi. No, the little stretch of Alabama, though, is where Mobile is.
Yeah, that's
fabulous part.
That's where they have the bullet toss across the border, which is awesome. I mean, it's a great part of the world. But here's the thing: people got to realize is that base there, Pensacola, which our good friend Matt Gaetz, that's his district in the first, all the way in the northwestern corner there. You have a lot of folks who work on the base who live in Alabama and all around. But this is that I-10 that comes across there, all the way across the essentially the American South, going from New Orleans over to Florida. This is a big deal. The fact that you have the governor, I believe it's Governor Raimondo, I believe is her name, in Rhode Island, that is stopping cars that are coming from New York. This is a big deal. And I do worry about the precedent being set here about individual states. And Jack fact-checked me yesterday and said that 1917 Spanish flu, that we did some of this, but that we need more of a national policy for this. I get nervous when we have individual states popping up with all their own thing in a fragmented system and what the chain reaction can be. Fortunately, we're still early enough to where we can impact that. The one thing, Steve, I'd also say that this is for listeners, during the commercial break when we had Mayor Giuliani on, we could actually hear the ambulances in the background from his apartment. That's literally, if that had happened while he was on the phone, you wouldn't have been able to hear him. And I've been into his place. I mean, it's in a solid pre-war building.
It's the height of Upper East Side,
and you could hear the ambulances just blowing
I know
through.
people that live in Brooklyn that tell me the ambulances are 24 hours a day, and we know that the backlog, it's an extraordinary backlog. You broke this yesterday. Extraordinary backlog on 911, which they said they'd never had before. Let's go to two other hotspots: Italy and Spain. Spain, I think, is starting to shock people. You called it a couple of days ago, Raheem. We said that, hey, they don't have the medical. One of the things that starts to happen, you saw this in Wuhan, you're seeing it in Italy. The medical system starts to collapse because you get the doctor and nurse casualty rates, right? They get over 10%. Then all of a sudden the whole system starts to fold in on itself.
2 weeks ago, while I was coughing up my lungs on the show, I said, look, Spain is going to be the next thing that we're going to have to look at. And indeed it is. We're up 832 deaths over the last 24 hours. Spain now has 72,248 cases and 5,690 deaths. There have been 889 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. And the big thing coming out of Spain is the thing that we've been saying on this show time and time again. It relates right back to what you were just talking about, the new CDC guidance on masks. Up to, they're saying now, remember, firstly, it was 5%, then it was 10%, then it was 15% of healthcare workers who were succumbing to this and who are being taken out of action because of infection. They're now talking about up to 25% of the healthcare workforce in Spain. I'm going to use the quote from Spain, from the Spanish Health Ministry, in the near future. Right, and the near future is basically in the next week, is what they're saying. Now, this comes down to a massive PPE shortage that they have.
Hold it. Walk me back through that. What percentage is going to be infected?
25% of healthcare workers in Spain. And we're talking about over the course of the next week, we're monitoring this notching up. They don't have equipment. They don't have shields. They don't have masks. They don't have gowns. These guys are on the front lines and they are treating people. They're coming into close contact with people, just completely bare bones.
I think the one thing to put that in perspective, and yes, these guys are heroes and they're going to be real heroes in the future. But if we believe the best science that says probably 50% of us are going to be infected at minimum before this passes around the world. 25% amongst a healthy population of doctors, I mean, hope that we don't have as mortalities, but we're all going to suffer from this in one way or another.
But hold on, but you're thinking about it a different way.
Exactly.
That's herd immunity just coming through a general population. These are guys who are infected at the point of touch. They're getting real infection.
But 2 weeks from now, we might find out that 25% of Madrid has been infected because we now know over 50% are asymptomatic.
But the real point is their healthcare system already cannot cope. If you're taking 25% of capacity, 30% of capacity, who knows what it's going to be in a month's time, out, then who's looking after these patients?
I guess what I was trying to say is I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised at the infection rate. What I'm surprised at is the fact that this is swept so quickly, that the numbers are increased so quickly, and that you've already got a situation in Spain where they can't cope. What's going to happen to all the patients?
You see in Italy, when it reaches over 10%, you see the stress to the system in the moment. That's what we got to hopefully in New York City, New Orleans, Detroit, these other places. That's where we got to protect. That's what the big question is about the PPE. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return with Steve Cortes and get the details of actually how we bridge this crisis. Back in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Live from Capitol Hill, episode 81 of War Room Pandemic, and I want to bring on Steve Cortes. Steve, you know, is one of the top spokesmen for the Trump. I guess it's the Super PAC now, or one of the PACs you're working for, Steve. You've been a part of the Trump movement from the beginning. People don't realize, though, a lot of people don't realize, I know you've got a big hit show on Salem Radio out there in Chicago, but people don't realize that you're also a very sophisticated Wall Street hedge fund type.
Yes. No. So listen, I got into politics with Donald Trump. I spent 25 years on Wall Street trading financial markets. And because of that, I've got a lot of opinions on what needs to be done. And I hope plans that will work in terms of getting cash to the people who need it the most. And I think what we just passed in the Congress is a first step. Okay, there is some progress there, but there's not nearly enough progress for working Americans. That bill is very good at taking care of the jobless. It's extremely generous to those who are unemployed. But what it does not do is provide assistance to the working vulnerable. And what I mean by that is people who are still working, but we know there was a poll out last night, Steve, ABC News, Washington Post poll, 51% of Americans who are working say that their hours or wages are being reduced. So we have people who are still employed, who are in vulnerable position, and we need to get much broader help to them and much faster help to them. The idea of a $1,200 check to a middle-class guy that might arrive in 6 weeks is too little, too late. We need immediate assistance for them.
What about? I thought, on the other hand, though, didn't there's $200 or $300 billion that are supposed to go to companies to make sure that you don't lose hours and don't lose any pay? I thought that they were attacking this from three separate angles. One, increased unemployment insurance, right? So you got, if you weren't unemployed, you get actually more cash. Number two was going to be the direct payment of the $1,200, right, or the $2,400 or $2,500 if you're married. Number three was going to be this direct kind of treasury going through SBA or the non-bank lending institutions, however they did it, to make sure that the little guy, these are emerging growth companies or the dry cleaner, the yoga studio, that they could apply very quickly, which essentially would be a grant. It's not even a loan because it goes away if you stay in business, that cash would be available to keep people up. So isn't that there to help people?
Listen, I think it's something. It's not enough. Again, I think we need broader and faster. We need it to be immediate. So no, what you're talking about, Steve, I think is a good move. There are good things in this bill. There's a lot of nonsense too, but there are good things in this new law. My proposal, though, which I'm standing by, I think is the most immediate way to give working class Americans a raise, is to say that the middle and lower income levels, the tax rate temporarily goes to zero. Effective immediately. We could do this if the president were to get behind it, and congressional leaders, at least on the Republican side, we could do this in time for people for their April 15th pay date. If we take that tax rate to zero for working people, not the high end, but for middle and lower income folks, it's an immediate raise, it's immediate cash in their pockets, and it will give them, I believe, the confidence to spend. Because I think if you think now, Steve, a lot of people, even if they still have their job and even if they're making a decent living, they don't have confidence to spend right now. So, for instance, think of a $70,000 a year trucker, good middle-class wage. Right now, he is looking to only get – he's worried about his hours or wages being cut. And, again, that's not my opinion. That's their reality. 51% of Americans tell us that in an ABC poll. He's worried about his hours or wages being cut. We're going to give him a $1,200 check in 6 weeks. That's going to do nothing to change his present scenario. And I'll give you another example. Let's take a single mom who's a middle manager. Say she makes $120,000, making a good white-collar living. She has a couple of kids at home. She lives in a major metro area like L.A., D.C., New York. She is barely getting by, frankly, on that salary, and she is going to get nothing in this package. So what's her propensity to spend right now? I have to think it's nothing. She might have her kids aren't in school. She might have child care expenses she wasn't planning on. She's trying to work from home. She's trying to juggle all of this. She is retrenching. This is the angst that we have to fight, and I think we have to fight it with immediacy. That's what I'm really pushing here too. Is you know, look, we can talk about what is the absolute best plan, but we also need to have quick relief. This has to happen quickly. The idea of getting a small check, one-time check, in 6 weeks to me isn't enough.
Steve, let's talk through this for a moment because I think we're, in a sense, talking past each other a little bit. The $1,200, for example, the extra benefits that are going in there, the unemployment benefits going back and starting on January 27th, the 2 months worth of small business loans that allow people to keep people employed and keep these afloat. This is meant to be a bridge. This is meant to be a bridge to get us past. What you're talking about is more of how do we juice the economy going, get people more spending.
No, he's not. He's talking about there's no bridge. He's actually saying no. He's saying there's no bridge. The only bridge right now, unless we figure out and quickly that those loans happen quickly, is everybody's going to go to unemployment. Your logic would be. This is what Lindsey Graham, I think, has been saying.
And I think those loans are happening. I talked to a CEO yesterday who went online at the SBA and has already gotten recommended and matched up with a lender on that. So
this is my question, Cortes. That if the loan part works and works quickly, are you more confident that the bridge? Because the loan is don't lay off anybody. So if the loan part and it's $350 billion, if the loan part works, does that get you more comfortable that we got the bridge and the people will get the $1,200? That'll get us over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes, listen, that would be a great step. I want to see implementation, though. Will it happen quickly enough? But I would still argue, even then, again, that's a great step. It's a step forward. Taking care of the jobless is a great step forward. But I think we need to think even bigger and bolder. And again, speed really, really matters here. We don't have 6 weeks for people to actually have the cash on the barrel, to actually have the assistance and the confidence to go out and spend. So to me, the simplest way, I think simplicity is key here. The simplest way, not a government program, no agencies involved. Your tax rate is 0 as of today.
And if
we
you
would
filed
actually pass that this week.
Yeah, if you file electronically, you're going to have your check within the next 3 to 4 weeks. If you filed, like you said, paper-wise, so that's about 70 million who've done it electronically, about 80 million who've then on the snail mail. You're right, Steve, it's going to be more than that 6 weeks. Let me ask you this question. How long would you keep this 0 rate going? So obviously you want to get that going immediately. How long would this be a 1 month, 2 month, end of the year? How long would you keep that in place?
Right. I suspect end of the year, and when I wrote about this in Real Clear Politics, what I said is let's give that call to someone who's at least quasi-independent. For example, you could say the Fed chair. Congress could say he is authorized to say when we are going back to regular rates. But my view would be at least the rest of this year. I think that the situation's dire enough that we need to give people that much runway with a raise, a de facto raise, cash in their pockets, and confidence to spend. And also,
Steve, we got to bounce. We're up against a hard break. Steve Cortes. We're going to explain what he's saying when we come back.